Noises in the night are chilling enough, but what if they come from something sinister lurking right beneath your home? For one man, investigating the taps and scrapes under his house reveals a true nightmare just waiting to break through. Will he escape the grasp of this subhuman horror from the depths or wind up its next victim? Hit like and subscribe for this terrifying tale. It was a cold October night when I first heard the noises coming from my basement. At first I thought nothing of it. Old houses like mine often creak and groan. But these noises were different. More rhythmic. And they seemed to come at odd hours, late at night when the rest of the house was still and quiet. Tap, tap, tap. Scrape. Tap, tap, tap. Every night, the same pattern. It was unnerving, to say the least. My mind raced with possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. A squatter? Some kind of animal that had gotten trapped? Or something more sinister? I tried to ignore it, but the noises persisted. I asked my neighbor Paul about it over the fence one morning, but he just shrugged and said all old houses make strange sounds. Easy for him to say. He didn't have to try and sleep with that insistent tapping right under his bed. After a week of increasingly sleepless nights, I decided I had to investigate. I waited until a little after midnight when the tapping started up as usual. Heart pounding, I crept down into the cellar with a flashlight in hand. The old wooden stairs groaned under my weight, seeming like they might collapse at any moment. At the bottom, I swept my light back and forth across decades of forgotten objects covered in dusty sheets. The place clearly hadn't been touched since we moved in. Off in a dark corner, I could just make out a large hulking shape that must have been the old furnace. The tapping sounds drifted from that direction, along with the faint sound of breathing. I hesitated, feeling like something was watching me just outside the edge of the light. "Hello?" I called out, cursing the way my voice quavered. "Who's there?" The tapping stopped abruptly. The ensuing silence was heavy, oppressive. Some animalistic sense told me that there was something in that corner, something that did not want me to come any closer. But I had to know what it was. Gripping the flashlight tightly, I crept toward the furnace. With each step, my dread grew. The breathing, ragged and wet, grew louder. As the beam of light illuminated the creature, my scream lodged in my throat. All I could do was stare in horror. It was crouched atop the old furnace, pale flesh stretched tightly over its skeletal frame. Sharp, naked bones protruded through the paper-thin skin in places, glistening wetly. It was humanoid in shape, though hunched over and animalistic. The head swiveled with an audible crack, devoid of eyes but oriented right toward me. It opened its mouth in a ragged snarl, strings of saliva dripping from pointed yellow teeth. I stumbled back, dropping the flashlight which spun on the cold concrete floor, casting chaotic shadows. The thing leapt down from its perch, landing on all fours with a meaty smack before scuttling straight toward me faster than I would have thought possible. Adrenaline flooded my body as I scrambled back upstairs, emerging into the kitchen and slamming the cellar door shut behind me. I could hear the creature throw itself against the door over and over, snarling furiously. The wood began to crack, the hinges threatening to give way. I didn't stop to think. I fled the house, not even bothering to grab my keys or a coat first. The thing would be through that door any second. I raced into the night, the cold biting at my skin but barely registering through the panicked haze in my mind. Only when I reached Paul's house did I finally stop, banging on his door until he opened it, looking both concerned and annoyed at the late hour. I must have looked deranged on his doorstep, rambling about a monster in my basement, but he generously allowed me to spend what remained of the night on his couch. "Probably just a rabid raccoon or something," Paul said as he handed me a cup of coffee the next morning. "Noises can play tricks at night. I'm sure it'll be gone by daylight." But I knew what I had seen. And I had no intention of going back there, at least not until I had the police and animal control come clear the place. If Paul wanted to chalk it up to rabid wildlife, fine. But I wouldn't step foot in that basement again until I was sure the thing was gone. Later that day, I returned reluctantly with 2 police officers to grab some of my belongings. The basement door was hanging by one hinge, the wood splintered and cracked from the other side. The officers drew their weapons as we approached, signaling me to stay back. I could hear them descending the creaky stairs, calling out warnings into the dark. Then silence followed by panicked shouts and gunshots. I wanted to run, but I was frozen in place. After what felt like an eternity, one of the officers emerged, looking pale and shaken. "You shouldn't go down there," he said. "There's nothing human that could have done that." He wouldn't elaborate, and a short time later animal control arrived to examine the scene. I could hear more gunshots from below. They finally emerged with a large body bag, loaded into the back of their van. I tried to ask what was inside, but they sped off in silence. Whatever that thing was, it was clear nobody had dealt with anything like it before. I stayed at Paul's for weeks, until the police finally assured me that the house was clear and I could return. But the memory of that gnarled, skeletal creature still chills me to my core. I still live in that house, but I sealed off the basement for good. Once in a while late at night, I'll hear a tapping start up faintly from below. My breath catches, heart racing until I force myself to remember it's gone. Boarded up down there. Just the pipes knocking, I tell myself. But part of me knows. Something that evil doesn't just vanish so easily. It's down there, waiting. Biding its time in the dark. Tap, tap, tap.